I agree with you, but can I perhaps take a semantic view on this? You're absolutely right. It's not my job or your job or anyone's job to convert someone to atheism. But if their belief is actively harming our world,
right,
isn't there a point where we can actually stop and say, well, actually, no, we have a right to stand up and say what you believe should not follow the laws and legislations and moral conducts and behaviors. We should not tolerate it in our society. We should not allow you to impose those beliefs on us.
I entirely agree, and I'm the first one out there to protest. And by the way, I'll be speaking to the Irish Atheist Convention in July, and they've got the new blasphemy laws, so I'd appreciate any donations to my bail fund if I could. But I agree. We need to be out there protecting our rights and asserting our rights. I have a bit of a concern, though, when we interact with people we're close to, like our brothers and sisters and friends and relatives. Is it our job to convert them, and how do we interact with them? And I actually spend several chapters towards the end of the book talking about, well, how do you interact with these people? And one of the lessons I try to convey in the book is that logic is not the answer. You cannot argue somebody out of their religion. So stop doing it. It just creates more discontent in the relationship. The focus should be, as we interact with people we love and care about, the focus should be more on how do I influence that person rather than how do I convert that person. Because, in fact, they're trying to convert you. They want you to become a Christian or Episcopalian or a Pentecostal. I don't care if they convert to me. What I do care is they stay out of my business. Don't tell me who I can sleep with, when I can have sex, what I can eat, what is taught in my schools. I think people should not be imposing their religious viewpoint on me, and I'm very assertive about that. So I distinguish between the political, social world. Are we going to teach our kids that the world's 6,000 years old? That I'm concerned about, just like you are. But I'm also concerned about how do I relate to my family, my friends, my neighbors? How do I influence them rather than convert them?
And
that makes sense.
And sometimes there's nothing you can really do to control how the other people will respond. There is a distinction to be drawn between proselytizing, on the one hand, trying to convert someone openly, and the simple act of free and open discussion, criticism, debate, having a show like we have where you talk about the subject of religion, you talk about atheism, you offer alternatives to religion, people call, you argue with them over the phone. That's different. But the problem is, one thing that I think about, one of the defense mechanisms, if you will, of the God virus is it's very, very resistant even to that level of discourse, that bit of inoculation. And this is why you hear, atheists, for example, Dawkins, if you listen to him talk and you read his books and you've seen him in person, he's a bit of a firebrand, but he's really, he's an English gentleman of the old school. But everywhere you hear Christians talking about him, he is apparently this rabid, frothing at the mouth, polemicist, angry, militant is the word that is often used. Apparently, in order to be militant and an atheist, all you have to do is write a book or have a blog. If you're religious and you want people to call you militant, you have to blow stuff up and shoot people. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. And all you can do is just try to present your ideas as rationally and as openly as you can and make sure the other person knows that what you're doing is you're inviting discourse. And even then, you have to be aware that they are probably going to immediately be like, you're evil, you're, militant atheist, go away, bad. So they're going to respond to that, and I think that's probably the defense mechanisms of the virus kicking in.
Absolutely, very much so.
I would agree with you, if I'm aware that I'm infringing on other people's time as well. But if I look at what Dawkins and Sam Harris are saying, especially when they talk about the circles around protection and the way they divvy up different types of religious people from the fanatic to the most liberal, I think what they're alluding to here is saying that, well, if you talk to someone and try to influence them, they automatically can step back and shift the goalpost into a more liberal position and distance themselves from the more fanatical position. And so you end up saying, well, look, your position is causing harm. And they say, well, that's not me, that's the fanatics. And you end up with well, I don't know how to tackle that.
That's true. It's like trying to squish whole Jell-O in your hand. It just kind of squeezes out, doesn't it?
Yes. This is what I mean. If there is a way, another mechanism to deal with this so-called virus, metaphorically, then what's the procedure? I mean, okay, I understand that you're saying, well, we have to not get people's backs up and not deal with it maybe on the rational level and maybe not belittle the ideas. I know Tracy did a brilliant research about this a few episodes back about how atheists become atheists for the rational and religious people become religious for the emotive reasoning. So I can see that completely. I've encountered that before. But I'm not sure that solves the problem in the sense that it still enables someone to move on into somewhere more defensible from their position, which is more liberal, but they're still funding. I can give examples in Europe where taxes to the church are still commonplace. In fact, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, you still pay taxes to the church, and therefore you're empowering the church to make a decision. And even if you take a liberal approach and you say, well, that's not me, that's the church, you funded them, you supported them, you helped them,
sure,
and you protected them by taking that liberal approach.
I'm just as much against that as any, and I'm happy if you're going to go out there and protest it and vote against it and do whatever you need in a democratic society to stop it. But that's different than dealing with friends, relatives, and loved ones and how we interact with those folks and coworkers and that sort of thing. That's the two realms I try to talk about in the book. I don't think there's a solution to this problem, Leo, but I think there's a way to approach it, and that's what I try to talk about.
And now, jumping in real quick, because this is an area where I'm not sure exactly how much in agreement you and I are on this. I think we're mostly in agreement in that I don't go around knocking door to door. People call us, and we have the conversation here. But my take on it is I'm always a bit bothered when people say that that logic and reason is the wrong approach or is an approach we shouldn't use. I agree that you're not going to reason somebody out of something that more than likely they didn't use reason to believe in the first place. And yet I'm a living example of somebody who, because of logical arguments and reason and evidence and an increased understanding, gave up their beliefs. And because of doing the show and having these conversations, I hear all the time from people. There was an email just the other day of a guy that said, up until 3 months ago, I was a fundamentalist Christian, and it's because of things that I saw on your show or read from Dawkins, et cetera. Right. So I've always been an advocate of the kind of many-pronged approach to this, that you need somebody like me who is going to be as in your face as you're possibly going to be. But with people calling me, I don't make outgoing calls. It's not like I'm knocking door to door saying, hey, you still believe in Jesus? I can fix that. But you also need... Sorry, what's that?
No, I said I completely agree and accept your approach. I think you probably found the right balance of it.
Yeah.
I think
the thing is that I completely agree with Darrell with respect to family members and things. Yeah. And I've been accused of being a hypocrite about this before. It's not that I don't care about my family members. I've had discussions with them, and we have come to an agreement that they know what my position is, and to some degree they understand my reasons. If they understood it entirely, I think they wouldn't be religious anymore.
That's true.
But and I understand what their position is, and we have kind of come to this agreement that for the sake of keeping the peace in the family, we're just not going to address these issues, and I'm fine with that. And I'm not in the position where I would ever. If somebody calls the show and reaches a point where they don't want to talk about this anymore because they're uncomfortable, that's fine. Yeah. And you're all entitled to believe whatever nonsense you want. Where we definitely agree is that you need to keep your beliefs out of what the rest of us are allowed to do with regard to politics and law and things like that.
And I think what you bring up right there is when some of our phone calls with theists get to the point where they are uncomfortable with continuing the call, I think that is the moment where a little good has probably been done, because right there, that person is going to think about this call. And ultimately, the way to cure the God virus, if you want to know about treatment of it, each individual person, you've got to do your own work here. You have to do your own heavy lifting in the end in order to get where you need to be. And all we can do as unbelievers and as skeptics, rationalists, people who are very interested in what the truth actually is, and I think that is a distinguishing characteristic of atheists, is that we need to be the people who care passionately about what really is and is not true, regardless of whether a certain belief makes you feel good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To have a worldview that conforms to observable reality, I think is usually the best way to go about it. You've said that many times.